we might be able to have avatars of people that have passed away, you know, our grandparents and things like that. If we had all this database of them and put it into an avatar, we could, you know, we could talk to them many years, 20 years after they've passed or whatever. But I keep thinking of today now. I could probably start doing that now for my great-grandkids, you know, that'll never know me, but they'll understand me from a deeper perspective rather than just watching a couple of videos or film clips of me or something like that, and actually be able to interact with me, even though it's not me, but it's kind of like consciousness in a way.
Hey Shane, how you doing?
Dex, how you going?
Good, mate. It's been a while. Hey,
it's been too long.
I know.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I say that all the time, but it's true.
I know. We should have recorded that the previous 1 hour. There's some juicy stuff in there, so we're going to try and maybe rehash some of those points. And today we're actually going to be talking about AI, which, hey, it's our podcast, so I think we can talk about anything we want. But if we can weave it into coaching, if we can weave it into spirituality, and weave it into business, I think that'd be good. So you spoke to me, or you mentioned to me about a bit of an AI venture that you're wanting to go down. You want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. Yeah, I will actually. So the AI thing, I mean, it's quite vast. You know, if you haven't heard about AI, you must be under a rock, I think. But so I think, at some point it was going to definitely come onto this podcast. When it comes to things like coaching and spirituality, even, I've kind of played around for the last maybe 6 to 12 months with my own kind of AI coach that I've kind of put together, and I've been experimenting for a long time. But I've realized too, there's quite a lot of apps in the industry that are coming out that either you or I could download our thoughts and our own kind of IP into it and have our own coaches. So I think that's a really good thing. It's not just a generic thing where you just speak to ChatGPT or something like that, but it's actually your own personal kind of branded AI coach. Now that's a little bit different than the AI kind of venture I'm going on. It's kind of more geared towards everyday businesses, really, more in the marketing field, and trying to save businesses money and run more efficiently, I think, in terms of systems and things like that. But that's just another kind of interest I have on the side of the coaching. But I do see where the two of them actually do marry up as well. And we're kind of on the cusp of that, where I see a day coming, and it won't be too far off in the next couple of years, where I think everyone, just as you have many apps in your phone, you'll have your own AI coach app, where it's either your favorite kind of coach, or it could be, something that you've programmed yourself, and you may check in every day and ask for some advice, rather than maybe go and ask a friend even, who knows?
Yeah.
But I see it being kind of like a mainstay, a everyday thing. Yeah.
It's funny. I know a lot about AI, just being in tech, and that introduction that you just said, I almost had an aha moment in that I wouldn't say I'm against AI and coaching. Like, I know people do it already, and we actually spoke before recording how coaching itself, there's I wouldn't say there's an art to coaching, because coaching is quite precise in terms of the types of questions you should be asking, how you deliver them, how you can achieve a result for your client. There's not much real creativity to it at the end of the day, because the questions are the questions. And when you were talking just then, and you said downloading, and you paused, in my head, I said consciousness, and I'm like, oh, okay. I know that that's been around in terms of, Joe Rogan likes to talk about this. Lots of people like to talk about this. Can you download your consciousness? And up until that point, I've never thought about it in that capacity where if you could, then AI coaching would be it. Because we were talking before we hit record, how, coaching, the industry itself, if everyone's at the same level playing field, they'll know the right questions to ask. The only real difference is to ask those questions in a way that you would normally would in normal conversation. And so what could happen is, if you take a whole bunch of people that don't know about coaching and you put them through the same course, at the end of it, they'll most likely be asking the same questions because that's what they've been taught. And there's nothing wrong with that because, these courses are put together and the content within them, they're designed to get the results for the client, which is essentially what coaching is about, right? It's results for the client. It's nothing about you. And so how can you put a bit of personality behind it? How can you make it a little bit more fun rather than just, a dozen people asking the same questions? There's a bit of thought behind that. And so coaching and AI, if they're put through the same course as these people that have gone through it, they're going to be good. They're going to be quicker. They're going to be free. There's going to be things that you could ask this AI coach that they won't get angry about because you can swear at them and you can be whatever. You could be truly you in an AI coach, and the response will be the same. Now, during your pause and then me thinking, wow, imagine you could download your consciousness, then that's where your personality would actually come into it, where those questions, they're not going to be the same questions. Ideally, it would still have the same meaning behind the questions, but you would ask them in your way, your slang, your accent, your delivery, and that's what's going to differentiate you as a coach to somebody else that's asking, the same generic questions. Now, I'm not saying that doing that is bad. We all have to start somewhere if we want to have some sort of formal coaching qualifications. But once you get to that level of proficiency of the questions that you know how to ask, you should then be able to change them in a way to suit your language, to suit your style. I dress in a hoodie pretty much every single day, and now I'm wearing track pants. It's a work at home day, so I want to be as comfortable as I can. Now, am I dressed to, if people would look at me and I was to ask them the types of formal coaching questions in order to achieve a result for a client, it doesn't look right. And in fact, it doesn't feel right for me because that's not the way that I talk. I don't like to constantly ask people, so tell me more about that. So how did that feel for you? That's not me. And I'm still trying to work around ways to improve that language to make it seem more me. But that downloading consciousness thought in my head, because the pause you did was just perfect for me anyway. That's what I'm thinking. Oh, okay, this is going to be a bit of a game changer now. So
yeah, absolutely. I suppose the thing we first have to contemplate is what actually is consciousness. When we think about it, because it's a very individual thing. But what is it? Like for me, I think of it as an energy, an essence of who that person is, right? Perhaps you could take that energy, put it into another body. I don't know, but the thing is, we use that term consciousness, and it is kind of directed towards a particular person. Maybe it's their personality, the little nuances that they have, like you said, how you would answer something or how you would say something. So it's kind of like it really encompasses all of that. And even in the last 12 months, I've seen a huge kind of jump in AI kind of learning, what it's been able to do. Perhaps 12 months ago was, pretty damn good, but it was still robotic, where people could really tell it's a robot I'm talking to, or, it's very artificial. But lately I've heard some interactions where people have spoken with AI, and 90% of the people cannot tell, and it really depends on what those questions are and things like that. No, but when it comes to us programming something where it's going to be a replica of ourselves, when you think about it, if, a few years down the track, so like I said, in 12 months, it's gone leaps and bounds. So a few years down the track, when you consider all the kind of content that we put out as a person, on our personal channels, if we've got video, written content, all of that sort of thing, if we can grab all of that and put it into this kind of avatar of ourselves, it's really encompassing everything that we have. When you think, 20, 30 years ago, all we may have had was photographs and videos of people even that have passed. And this was something I was thinking about years ago, in years down the track, we might be able to have avatars of people that have passed away, our grandparents and things like that. If we had all this database of them and put it into an avatar, we could, we could talk to them many years, 20 years after they've passed or whatever. But I keep thinking of today now, I could probably start doing that now for my great-grandkids, that'll never know me, but they'll understand me from a deeper perspective rather than just watching a couple of videos or film clips of me or something like that, and actually be able to interact with me, even though it's not me. But it's kind of like consciousness in a way, it's capturing everything that I've had and maybe 10 years worth of data all in this thing. So, we could probably do that even where we sit now today as coaches, and
that sounds like a Black Mirror episode, and I think it has. I think it was, and I think it has been. But I remember many years ago when I had a VR, a virtual reality company. That was one of the things that we spoke of that was possible, and I think there were some companies that were doing something similar. Back then it was Unreal Engine 4. There's now Unreal Engine 5. And so the uncanny valley is becoming much, much smaller. It's extremely difficult. Things that are computer generated are so photorealistic. In fact, sometimes they're even better than the real thing. It's funny. I remember when Gran Turismo first came out, they said that the car models looked better, like the car models in the computer game looked better than the actual cars because they were too perfect. And it's getting to that point now with the software that's available. Like you can create that. I think it might have been in Japan or China. There was a VR experience where someone had passed away and they were able to recreate that person in VR, and you can interact with them.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's a Black Mirror episode as well. But it's an interesting thing, and I've always had a good relationship with AI, and in fact, I probably tend to push back on it because I think it's fun, and like listening to you talk and thinking about AI as well. I'm and the uploading of consciousness and personality and all of that sort of stuff. I'm erring on the side of AI will initially, now look, this down the track it might change. AI will initially be the best version of you. And why I think that is because we can train AI to be us individually, how we respond to questions, how we ask questions. But I don't know if we can train AI to be like us given what happened 30 minutes prior to training. You know what I mean? There's always whenever we train, there's like, okay, we're going to train it based off this data, based off these sets of inputs. This is how we're going to train it. But the way in which we train something, especially if it's going to be something as, delicate, intimate, personal, whatever you want to say it, as our consciousness, you have to come from a place of what was happening prior to that. Did you have a fight with your spouse? Did your family pet die the week before? Are you dealing with a health issue that you've not told anyone? And so when it comes time to you training AI in one particular aspect, they won't know about that, unless there's ways in which you can kind of tell them. It's just say, okay, well, today this happened, and then now you kind of train them. Because otherwise, it's not a true representation of you, because, for an entire week, you'd just be bubbly and everything's fine and you're training it, you're giving it information. Then you see the doctor on the weekend and then they give you some bad news and you've not told anyone because you don't want to do that, because for a guy, we don't like to talk, right? And then so the next week you could train again, but now your energy is low, but you've not told anyone. And so AI is going, okay, well, this is what he is now. So he's almost bipolar in a way. So I like to think that AI has the ability to mirror, to mimic, and to a certain point, create interaction between those 2 points. But I don't know whether it knows the reasons why that's to happen. So, I do understand that there's certain jobs out there, certain industries that will get decimated by AI. And I know that there are ones that will stick around for much longer. But I'm erring on the side of it'll help initially more than it will sort of create chaos. But that's my understanding. There are probably people much deeper in it than I that are going, oh my God, it's going to be the worst thing ever, and this is what it's going to happen, and planes are going to fall out of the sky, and it might happen, but it's just from my understanding. And it's by nowhere, like it's not even close to what the true understanding is. I'm just seeing what I'm hearing from other people and seeing what's going on. But what's going on is usually what they've showed you. There's probably stuff that they've been working on that, hey, you're only seeing what we're showing you. The stuff that we're working on behind the curtains, you have no idea. You just wait till this comes out.
Yes, that'll be the next shock wave, I guess. But yeah, true. The thing is, you can represent yourself as the 100% positive version of you, unless you program it to be the real version of you, I guess. It means other people, it's almost like the version of yourself maybe you present at work. nothing's wrong with this.
Wait, sorry, present to yourself at work when the bosses are around.
That's it.
Because when the bosses aren't around, it's entirely different.
Correct. So, maybe on the avatar thing, you've got a sliding version where you go more real, and that's the swearing and cursing version, and the depressed version, perhaps.
That's the premium subscription, isn't it? That's what that's what's going to happen when you've got the work version. It's like, you're so stale. It's like, oh, we have to go to the next plan now.
Yeah. But I kind of think of it like I may have spoken about it before. A while ago, I thought I'd love to put a YouTube channel together just for my kids or just for my grandkids. If I never see my grandkids, and it'd be all the things that I'd want to teach them, but never got a chance to do. And for me, I kind of think in that same way, but using a talking version of myself where it can interact with them. So I see that as a good thing. It'll never be the true essence of who I am unless I decide to kind of show all the sides of myself, I guess,
Yeah.
But I also think, do I really want to know all of that about my grandparents anyway,
Yeah.
But it's really up to us, I guess, where we take it. And no, there is a lot of kind of negativity around it as well, I guess, and that's the reality, I guess. And anything that changes, our lives in a big way, it's going to upset the masses in some way. It's going to affect their life. There is going to be some positive out of it. There's going to be things that are going to be big change. And I suppose how well we adapt to it is how we're, going to either benefit from it or not. And sometimes we don't know until we actually let the genie out of the bottle what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like my definition of AI and how I can see it progressing. For me, just feels so limited because I don't know what's possible. I don't know all industries, but I do understand the generalities behind it about what it can do in terms of data processing and decision making and all this sort of stuff. I understand that, but it's some of the other industries that I have no idea about that they can go, oh, AI can just do that and it will get rid of half the workforce or something along those lines, which is devastating because if you don't know, you don't know. And then all of a sudden they make a tweak to it, and next thing you know, AI can now do this sort of thing. It's funny. The other day, I accidentally enabled chat mode on ChatGPT, and it was funny because I enabled it, and I think I was talking to my daughter about something, and then my phone answered, and I'm like, did I forget to hang up? And then I found it was ChatGPT, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll ask it something. And
always listening.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, it answered it pretty well. And I can't remember if it was actually this discussion that we're having now or prior to the recording, but we were talking about how it sounded robotic, but now there are mannerisms that have included in the audio replies. If you're chatting to it through voice, it'll repeat the question and it'll say and it'll have all these little things, and there's inflection in the voice, and I'm like, oh, this is getting a bit scary. And I remember maybe it might have been a couple of months back where I was trying to work something out. It was an idea I had in my head I think it was for the coaching course, or it could have been something for the Decaf network. I'm not exactly sure what it was. And I think it was a couple of days after I'd figured out that I could use voice chat GPT, and it was actually quite good. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to try this out, like while I'm in the car. Not while I'm driving, while I'm in the car. maybe not. So I actually, I triggered it off, and I asked the questions. I'm trying to work on this concept. What are some words that I can use with this? Give me some tagline ideas. And it was actually really good. Like the replies were like, oh, this is like, I can see how this could be devastating for a lot of industries. From some of the marketing stuff, definitely copywriting. They're just the ways, the creativity behind it. It was good. But once I sharpened in on it and got it to be a bit more risque or sound a bit more like something or other, or add this word in, it was like, wow, okay, I get this now. This is it's cool and fun at the same time. And then while I was doing that, I was getting the thoughts of, oh, I can see why people that are normally introverted or don't want to talk to other people, they can see this as like, part of their escape, part of their socializing, so to speak. And I remember when they had upgraded to ChatGPT 5, I think it was 5.0 from 4.1 or something like that, and saying how not intimacy, but how certain aspects of the emotional capacity of the old engine were removed in the new engine. And they were like, hey, they're not as friendly as what they were anymore. And like, what's going on? And people were angry about that. Like, well, you can change it back to the old one. But it was like, okay, well, this is meant to be an evolution of the next version. And you've taken a lot of this stuff that people valued and you've put it back onto the more generic productivity side of things. So, I found it interesting. I found it a little bit frightening in a way. I didn't sort of dwell on the fact that, wow, this is so powerful. But I know there are some people that have, and they're trying to build businesses. I know you're starting one as well, but you kind of really need to be like, hey, I'm going to show you something that'll knock your socks off, and go up to a specific industry and say, okay, you see how you do this? Watch this, and you just show them the AI version. They're like, wow,
yeah,
okay. Now we've got to make a decision. Like, do we go for that and save ourselves money and get rid of half of our team, but you kind of do and don't want to do at the same time because, it's a different thing. Like the core of running a business is you want to run it as lean as possible and make the most amount of money, yada yada yada. But at the same time, it's like, well, do you get rid of all these people and replace them with this piece of software?
Yeah.
It's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the use cases we're looking at, which this has been running for some months now, but getting better every day, is like an AI receptionist. And the main aim isn't to actually get rid of your receptionist, although some businesses may choose to do that. Because I guess the thing is, it can run 24/7, answer multiple calls, book appointments for you, do pretty much anything a receptionist would do. Unfortunately, a lot more efficiently. And say there was a doctor's surgery or dentist practice or something like that, which are generally quite busy with call volumes. And I don't know how many times I've been in there where there might be one or two receptionists there, but still the phone will be ringing and they're on a call. So they've either got to put someone on hold. But if you had one AI kind of receptionist, they would pick up all the extra calls. So it doesn't mean you need to get rid of your receptionist, but I think the benefit is they can be there after hours, holidays. They never take a break, all of that sort of thing, right? That's really useful. But also I think where it becomes really beneficial is the people that are just in between that can't afford a receptionist but need one.
Yeah.
And, people like, say, one person businesses, say you're a contractor or plumber or something like that, but you are the business. Now if you're on the tools while the phone's ringing and you can't answer the call, generally people are going to move on to the next one. If there's a reason they have to come back to you because you're the only person in that town, then, you kind of, you've got the pick of the bunch, but otherwise people will just move on to another plumber or, and get onto who they can. So the benefit is they pick up the phone for you, record all the details, send the details to you, book an appointment if you want. They can even give them a quote if you program them to do so. So really it could get to the point where you go, I've got two extra appointments tomorrow, whether it's for me to go out there and do a quote or for me to go out there and do a job. And it could get to the point where you don't need to pick up the phone. And the whole point, I guess, is more efficiency in your business, getting you more clients, more jobs, that sort of thing. And, something as simple as just picking up the phone is sometimes difficult for us to do as humans, I've been in, not call centers, but I've been in internal sales. And when the phones are busy, sometimes you've got 2 or 3 people on hold, just to kind of answer their queries. And some of them could be just what time you open till, or, they need something simple, but something like an AI could have just answered that question for them, So
Interesting.
I think, there's a lot of use cases where it makes our job easier, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to kind of eliminate that position for someone, because normally, the majority of people want to talk to a human being, but if you can't get a human being on the line, people really want their query answered more than anything, and I think, that's kind of like the next step. If you can't keep up with the calls or your front of line isn't efficient, you need to kind of fix that. Either it means you have to employ more people, or this is a really good kind of easy fix.
It's funny when you were talking, especially in that last couple of minutes. In my head, I had this movie play where you're selling your solution to a company, and you're talking to the receptionist, and you're like,
Yeah, that's
"Hi,
the hard part.
I'm here to see Bob," and it's like, "Yeah, and you are I'm Shane from," and then you have the meeting, and then like the movie, you step out smiling, and Bob's there going, "See you, Shane," and then the reception's like, "Who was that?" It's like, "Oh, he's the man that's taking over your job." It's like, oh, that's really weird.
Yeah.
No, I get that. It's
Walking
okay.
like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah. It's interesting, that sort of stuff. I've heard that happening a lot, and at the same time, I think we are a bit more cognizant of, having, wanting something new, but still respecting and sometimes even wanting the old way of things. It's like, how we went from cassette tapes to, we had vinyl, we went to CDs, and we went to digital music. And we saw that, and then we thought, oh, no one's going to buy tapes. Tapes are gone. That's unfortunate, but vinyl's come back. People are still, but it's like, well, why do you want that? Because like the sound is inferior on these things. You have to spend a whole bunch of money, and look how big these records are. And digital is like, it's portable, but it's like, yeah, we like records.
Yeah.
It took a while for that progression to kind of happen and for it to come around. And now I think what happens is the realization that what's old is new again is in fact, we kind of don't want to let go of that sort of stuff anyway. We just kind of want to keep it, but at the same time, maybe use some of this new stuff. And now, that point you made about having a receptionist or a digital receptionist, a virtual receptionist, or an AI receptionist, like however which way you want to call it. Back in the day, if this tech was available now, or it is available now, but let's just say it's quite widespread, and it was maybe 5 years ago, people wouldn't really be talking about wanting to speak to somebody human. But now I think that that's almost at the same time. Like people are now considering that as but I kind of want to talk to a real human. I remember, I don't know if you do this thing as well, but I remember, calling up some of the bigger corporations where they've got a self-service kind of number where, hit 1 for support. Yeah. And then all you used to do was you used to hit the pound key or the hash key. You would just go, I want to do this because I want to talk to somebody. And I'm sure that AI will fix that. It'll be a little bit more intuitive. Like I still think that that phone tech, not the AI stuff, but the original phone tech is still a bit buggy. Say yes if you want to do this, and you go yes. And sometimes, did I hear no? It's like, no, I said yes. Sometimes you need to read a mobile number out, or you need to read your credit card number out, and you have to say it in a way that sometimes isn't comfortable for you because you might not pronounce certain numbers or words correctly, and at the end of it, it's like, did you just say this? It's like, no, and then you have to do it again. So. It's almost like, speaking from a place of starting a VR company, there are certain technologies that I think people think are already out in the mainstream, but when it comes time to actually doing it, it's actually nowhere near as close to what they think it is. Now, I'm not saying that AI is not there. There's undoubtedly some very good AI systems that can do that. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I think there was a Google demonstration some years ago where they booked an appointment, a hairdressing appointment, and I think it was must have been using Google's AI back in the day, and so I can't remember which way they did it, where it was somebody calling up the hairdresser, or it was your virtual assistant. Oh no, that's right. I think I remember it now. It was like you had a virtual assistant, and virtual meaning like actual virtual, like not offshore. It was an actual virtual assistant. And it was trying to book you a hairdressing appointment. And so as the demo goes, and again, this is just going from memory, so it could be a little bit hit and miss. The demo goes, the Google AI assistant rings the hairdresser and says, "Hi, my name is such and such. I'd like to book a hair appointment for this time, for this haircut or whatever." and then a hairdresser at the other end. Now, supposedly the hairdresser didn't know, right? But there are ways in which you can just say, hey, we're going to call up, and you just act all normal. Anyway, the hairdresser goes, I'm sorry, but, we don't have any free time slots. Like, can we reschedule, or can we book for another day? And then the AI would reply, okay, how about these days? And so there was a bit of back and forth. And then at the end, the appointment got booked and then whacked into Google Calendar, and it was all done. It was all done. So I do know that there's technology there that can do that.
Yeah.
But and then you ring up a big company, and then you're trying to get to the person that you're trying to talk to, and it doesn't help. Then you think to yourself, oh, I thought this AI thing was already sorted, but here I am calling a multi-billion-dollar corporation trying to speak to this person about my account, and the phone call just dies, or I get to the wrong person. So,
yeah.
In some aspects, I'm like, yeah, I'm all for that AI receptionist, but in other ways, I'm like, you know what? I don't even think it's even there.
Some of those, I think some of those bigger companies, they haven't adopted these systems yet.
No.
Like, telco companies and things like that. When you ring up, even just to pay your bill, like, I mean, I haven't done that for a long time, having to ring them up. But when you do, it's still that press 1 for, press 2 for, blah blah blah. I don't know how old that system is, but I'll tell you what, I'll prepare this system and show you. You'll be surprised
I've seen it.
how good it is.
I know how good it can be.
Yeah, and it really comes down to the programming. Like, if you wanted it to, I mean, it does act as a gatekeeper too. Think about receptionists, right?
Yeah, true.
They have to keep a lot of salespeople at bay too, so they're not going to put you through to Bob, the owner, anyway, But if that was a thing, you can certainly program all of that in there to, Not that I'm trying to sell you on it. It's just, I've seen these use cases, what they do, and even I was watching something a couple of days ago, and this was on YouTube, and it had been done, I think it was about 9 or 10 months ago, where this guy was building his own AI system to do a receptionist thing. And so he was testing it. He was calling it back, and it was so glitchy, and there was just this long lag in between what it was saying. And in the end, it's he was acting as the
client.
I think he was acting as the dentist, something like that, and the AI was calling him.
Okay.
And it just didn't do what it was supposed to do. In the end, he ended up giving up, in disgust. But they've come a long way since then. But I was thinking, even, I think I told you before, for my sales days, I hated doing sales calls, like cold calling. Now, in some countries you can do this, and some you can't. It just comes down to whatever law it is, but it can do the cold calling for you. And I've seen it where they've had a list of a couple of thousand people, where it's called them, dialed them all, in a couple of minutes, got all these sales calls done. And so it's very efficient, whether people hang up on them or swear at them, as you would get that, I mean, there's no emotion involved there, so it's
I'll tell you what,
like I'm ringing from XYZ company, and they, people might swear at them or whatever.
If you're a nasty guy, you could reverse that and go, your competition, you're going to buy it for your competition and get them to spam all of these cold calls out. Hi, this is company A plumbing. Everyone gets angry at him. You know what I think the problem is going to be, and it's nothing to do with the programming. It's nothing to do with the software or the technology. And I've seen this firsthand. I've seen this 100% firsthand, just from the work that I do. And it's actually the client. That's 100% the problem, because the system that you are talking about is it'll be perfect as long as there's no software bugs or programming bugs, and assuming internet works fine. Yeah. It will rarely fail. Where it does fail is the client, not the client, sorry, is the company. And it's usually a case of them having to take on new, not new roles, but they have to operate differently. You need to work entirely out of a calendar. You have to keep the thing up to date. You have to, the things that they have to do in order for the system to work. So let's just say that there's a system in place and a call comes through and it automatically routes them and books a job and gives them a quote and everything. And then the plumber's like, oh, I didn't plan on working that day, or, my son's football game's on. It's like, well, did you put it in your calendar? It's like, no. Like, well, that's why it booked it. That's why it booked it in, because your calendar is not up to date. And that's, that is a very common issue. Most of us, most business owners, most people that work in businesses, they have a familiarity. They're familiar. That's a word I can't say. They're familiar with their calendar, but they're not so much. They're not disciplined to run their life from it. They'll have someone will be like, okay, well, I'm just going to book in a Zoom meeting. I did it with you, right? Now the rest of the day is open. Now an AI system would assume that the rest of my day I can do what I like. If we go over the allotted time in my calendar appointment, AI is not going to know that. They're just going to be like, hey, I'm going to book you in a job for this time. It's like, wait a minute, I'm still talking to you. So the system itself is most likely going to be great and it'll work and everything will be fine. But it comes down to the company or the person that you're doing this for to say that you have to do this. And that's actually the hardest part about the whole thing, is to get that person disciplined enough to be like, in order for this thing to work, it's actually reliant on you. and sometimes you might get people going, you know what, this kind of worked, but it was tiring to get the calendar in. I wanted to have a bit of flexibility and now I can't. And now it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to call this person back. Look, sorry, I can't do that. My son's football game, it's his grand final. Can we reschedule? Yeah. So I see that's, being in IT for so many years, that's almost always the issue. 90% of the problem, maybe 95% of all problems are user-based. Sure, hardware fails and sometimes the software glitches out and you reboot it and fix it. But at the end of the day, I deleted an email accidentally, or I sent this and I shouldn't have, or I don't know where my files are. And, I turned on my computer and everything was different. And it's like, well, you must have clicked something, so it's, I love it. I love that AI is going to be able to do that sort of stuff and a whole bunch more. But it's there's a certain level of user interactivity and user interaction that needs to almost be spot on, because AI doesn't know any different. AI not yet anyway. They can't see your thoughts. They don't know that you've had a first. That your first 2 jobs have been tiring and you're going to call it quits for the end of the day. You just want to go home and have a beer, right? Yeah. But then on the way home, you get this job pinged up and it's like, what's going on? Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to say rest of the day off. Now I have to call the person back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what you said is 100%. I was even talking to Kerry about this with her dog grooming business, and I said to her, this would be perfect for you if you actually went by a calendar. Yeah, she goes by a calendar, but it's a pen and a book, and that's it. So I said, well, AI is not going to be able to read that, so you'd have to go off an electronic calendar, and she's got her set hours. And so anyone that, is working out of their, a manual diary would have to change something, yes. But any business that would have an assistant where they would book clients in for them, they'd already be used to this kind of thing anyway, because they'd be going by what the calendar is or what their assistant would say to them. You've got a call with these 5 people tomorrow or whatever, and this is hard for people like coaches like you and me that like to have an open calendar.
Yeah.
But even becoming a coach though, when you start taking calls in, there has to be something where clients can come in and whether I'm booking them in or whether they book themselves in, it has to be some sort of thing where they can go in electronically and do that. You know what I mean? I know even with our doctors, we can do that. We can book our own appointments in. Yeah. And so same thing, because they're using an electronic system, it's, what we see is what they see. Yeah. And so as soon as I take that spot in their system, it's allocated, and it's between their, allocated working times. So you have to be disciplined, I guess, in that regard. But yeah, if you're kind of going old school a little bit, or, like I said, you like to have your calendar free and you're booking your own things, it's probably not going to work for you. Yeah. But I think for the majority of places that are kind of not even technology savvy, but do have kind of like a electronic kind of presence, it enhances what they're already doing, and it just plugs into their system anyway. What's already there.
Yeah. No, it's it is one of those things that I've mentioned to my eldest number of times. Like, she's finished school now, so she's a bum. she's working, but that's a part-time job, and so she doesn't know what she wants to do. A bunch of her friends don't know what they want to do either, and it's always a case of just reminding her, like, give me a heads up, run it by me. I'm not the be all and end all, but I'll have some idea as to the potential impact. Maybe if not, I can research it. I can see if this is something that you should go down. Because there are definitely some clear-cut industries out there that, if she said to me, I want to do this, I'd be like, you really got to think about this because it's going to be difficult. Graphic design, copywriting, bits of marketing are still pretty good, but there's a lot of industries that are hurting bad. Like AI and graphic design, it's not even AI. Like Canva came around and like spanked that really, really badly. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, the only real, not only real, but one of the plus sides of having these sorts of industries that are kind of still alive is that it involves a computer, and people still have this, not so much fear, but they anything that involves a computer they don't want to do. You know what I mean? Even if it's like, Canva is just drag and drop, and you can click this and do that, they could probably do it. But at the same time, they're kind of like, no, I don't want to. Like, I don't like computers. Every time I touch a computer, something bad happens. So there is a bit of wiggle room there. Yeah. But, there's just so many gotchas for people out there. I want to try this. Even law. You mentioned it before, like receptionists, medical receptionists. I know a number of them have been let go. I think it's been on the news where, these people are getting replaced by systems that, like what you're talking about. And they're fine. It is more of an efficient way to do things. And, hopefully they can be reskilled or repurposed elsewhere in the clinic and that sort of stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves in the next, even 5 years is a long time to see where it's going to come from, because it was, a lot of the technology predictions that constantly get put, like they get shouted from the rooftops. Some of them come true, some of them don't. You know what I mean? It was like a perfect example was how long ago would this have been? Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I was looking after a lawyer's office, and next door to that lawyer's office was a company that looked at they were a paperless office company. So that's the tech that they were pushing, right? It would be like, hey, we're company A, and we promote having a paperless office for environmental reasons, and and we have this cloud system, and these are the scanners that you buy. You basically just scan all this sort of stuff, and it reduces the size of your footprint in the office because you don't have files, and yada yada yada. And so when you go down that path, you think, oh, they're trying to get rid of printers. And I think they were. That was the thing, right? Paperless office means you don't have to print things out. And so why would you want to buy a printer for, Yeah. Fast forward now, which is, I think, 15, probably more, 20 plus years. There's still no way there's a paperless office. They've reduced it, but it's still there. In fact, I remember I met a person that that was their job. They leased out those big copiers that the bigger companies used. He was making a killing. And these leases for this equipment, it's like 7 years. It's a very long time. They're making a lot of money because people still need to print things out, And, it's kind of the same thing with AI. We're saying that it's going to get rid of some industries. It might not get rid of this, but you kind of just don't know. There could be some external factor that hinders it all, because like we're still under the control of the programming, for certain things. So, let's just say that your AI model or the type of programming, it could be the code set, it could be the hardware just doesn't work or doesn't allow you to do certain things because of the parameters that you're trying to ask it. It's all very, I wouldn't say it's hit and miss, but you're building something where there's something that's not there, or you're basically copying something and seeing if it'll fit. You're basically, it's like the whole square peg, round hole thing. And the square peg is say an AI model, and you're trying to like bang the sides and whack it through. Sometimes it whacks through perfectly and you're fine. Other times it doesn't, you don't whack it through enough and go, you know what? It's probably not ready now, but maybe in a couple of years when it does this, it'll be fine. So I like it when technology gets disrupted, and I think more often than not, it's the technology that gets shouted about the most doesn't turn as quickly as we think, and it's the stuff underneath it, the smaller technology things that doesn't get shouted out about and that only really get brought to your attention when a meme pops up. Like storage capacity. Like no one talks about that. But occasionally I'll get this Microsoft thing about, all you need is 20 megabyte hard drive. Like what? Like that's that won't even hold like a photo these days. But now we're into terabytes and how cheap it is, and that's something that really should be applauded. It's like now we can do all this stuff, and now what people do is just save all these photos and they never look at them. But they do that because they've got all of this storage capacity. AI is a thing that always gets spoken about. AI is going to do this, it's going to do that, and yes, it does wonderful things. But what you might find that there's going to be something else, some other tech-related thing in the background. It could be crypto. Who knows? It could be blockchain. It could be something along those lines that people are aware of, but they're not making a big fuss about it. Like, because technically speaking, if we were to think about it, AI itself is a game changer in so many ways. But for certain industries and for certain companies, you don't know whereabouts in your game it can be changed. You just know about it. Whereas blockchain, the theory behind it, that has implications everywhere. And you can incorporate that kind of thinking, that kind of security for anything. But AI is the one that seems to be getting the most buzz because it's on your phone now. It's doing this thing. Sora is going absolutely bonkers with these videos that people are creating. And I think what's happening as well is that the release of Sora I think it's getting people a little bit scared in terms of the videos that get done, and in a similar way to how you can't get ChatGPT to do certain things if asked directly. There are prompts and ways in which you can ask the same thing and get the result that you want. Similar thing with the videos, Sora, okay, make me a video to do this. And I was like, no, okay, well, how about if I did it this way? Okay. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, any new technology that comes out like AI, there's a big buzz around it. Like you said, there's a lot around it. For it to become mainstream, I guess it takes some time. And when we start adapting it, it's always buggy. Like any kind of technology, it's the worst it's ever going to be, right? near the start. And but I think the thing is, it's still that new, and it's got so many kind of what I see anyway in terms of positivity. The fact that you mentioned crypto, imagine crypto and AI together, which I was into crypto as well. Crypto is not going to go away, right? But it's kind of been pushed to the background now because AI is the new thing at the moment. The thing is, I guess in most industries they don't know how to use it, and so we're in a phase of businesses will have certain problems, but they don't understand how to make the two fit. And I guess that's where it becomes the responsibility for people that are into it to kind of show them those use cases. This is how it can benefit your company. That will take a while. It's not like it's going to be an overnight thing. But once you start seeing the bigger players adapt these, then it becomes more adaptable and more kind of everyday, that, they're doing it. Why aren't we kind of, adapting this into our everyday work? And once that starts happening, it's like anything, think of the mid-90s, when we would have heard about websites, but not everyone had a website. And think of how many businesses thought, what do I want a website for? And if these days there is hardly any kind of business without a website. I still find them because, in touch with some, smaller companies and things like that. But it's kind of like no one would think of not having a website.
Yeah, this sounds exactly like virtual reality when I was trying to sell it. Exactly what you said was exactly the way that we were feeling at the time, and we had some good wins. And eventually, the tech, as it stands, isn't the place that we thought it would be. And, we took a bit of a gamble on that, and we lost. The tech's still around, and the tech is still great, but in terms of where we saw its commercial value, it was a very specific use case. And I think AI is in that same kind of bucket, but it's more accessible. You know what I mean? It's people understand it a bit better. People can use it. They carry it around with them every day. They see it on the internet. It's seamless, and it is something that is so surface level with what people associate it with, that when it starts to get tailored to specific applications, that's when it's going to get scary. It's going to be it's going to have implications beyond what we just are talking about with funny videos and all this sort of stuff. It's there's going to be stuff behind it, like who owns the data and what is this used for, and all of this sort of stuff. And I think that it is similar to websites in a way that people see it and they can kind of understand it, but the addition is that we, as people, are a lot more aware of security and digital footprints. And so people will still use it, but you'll still get people using it with, I don't want to do this because the government has my information and all this sort of stuff. And it's true. But at the same time, the government has your information in many other ways as well anyway. But it's almost like, this is an explicit ask. We're going to use your information because we're going to tailor our responses to you. We were talking about before how it's robotic. Like, I would imagine that, in, less than 5 years, maybe 10 years, I don't know, that, you talk about having an AI receptionist or something along those lines. And what you'll find is that they will probably be able to tailor a receptionist that you are more comfortable in communicating with. whether that be just because it speaks your language, or whether, because you like a particular slang, or, whether it recognizes your voice, right? That's what it'll do. It'll recognize your voice and it'll be like, oh, Shane's calling again. Okay, I remember that he liked to speak to Jill as the receptionist. So we'll put Jill on. Hey, Shane, how are you? And then it's like, it's an AI person, but you've conversed with them, but it's done a pattern recognition of your voice. And then, okay, you've spoken to Jill a number of times and it's graded itself and we're going to reconnect you with her again. Like, that's all going to happen. It's all going to be so tailored, and you're going to think you're going to be talking to a human. And I think people understand it and they still reluctantly go, okay, fine, you can have my data. Fine, great. But, it is becoming a lot more Terminator 2-ish in a way, that whole rise against the machines. Like 10, 20 years ago, that was a movie, right? And you think, no, this isn't going to happen. And now it's kind of like, oh, okay, I can see this happening now. And you have, companies like Boston Dynamics creating these dogs and these, bipedal robots that are like, that's amazing. But then if you have that hardware and that precision mixed with, some sort of AI compute, like, that's when it gets scary. That's when you're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, we need to see the updated movie of that one. What's, 10, 20 years down the line sort of thing, But it's interesting what you said about the AI receptionist, how it could be tailored to you. You spoke about this, but and that's 100% a thing that can happen right now, right? It'd recognize the number that's coming through. It'll have all the records of this is what we last spoke about, or your history and that sort of thing, in the case of maybe a doctor's surgery or a dentist or something like that. And that kind of happens now with a real receptionist, right? You'll ring up and they'll have your phone number, or they'll ask your name, and they'll have all your records there. Of course, it takes a little bit longer, but you're so right, what you said there. But that same thing could also happen with, in a system where you've got sales calls coming in, and you've got repeated customers, that sort of thing, and so that's probably another, one of those Black Mirror type scenarios where, you've got this virtual world where you can connect with businesses and other companies, where they know exactly how to treat you. It's kind of like, Facebook in a way, where you've got your own experience when you go into your Facebook kind of world, or even any kind of social media thing. It's kind of programmed on what you like, so it's feeding you more of what you like, and I'm sure that's a thing, with this.
I've got one more thought before we go. I just had this flash again when you were talking, and I had this picture in my head of say some of your systems that are designed to accept incoming calls, right? So an AI receptionist, if you will. And then at the same time, I was thinking of the Google example where it was an AI placemaker. I think that's what they call them. Is that what they call them when they call up and say, hey, can I book you in for a meeting sort of thing? Placemaker, place setter, whatever it was. And then they call each other up because that's what's going to happen, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. And I remember the example. I've heard of it and I don't know the details, but I know of the story where it was two AI systems talking to each other. Have you heard the story? And so what happened was, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it.
Actually, I've got there was a film clip that came up in my feed on YouTube to watch that. So
wow, okay, yeah. And so what I remembered of it was that they were. I think, and I could be totally moshing this, but from my understanding, from my memory, it was two AI systems talking to each other in English or in a language that they could understand, or that whoever programmed that could understand. And then at some point during the conversation, they both realized that they were both AIs. And so they stopped communicating in this language and started communicating in a language they made up themselves, but they could understand each other.
Hear about this, yes.
Yeah, yes. And then it was like, all bets are off. And they're like, hey, we don't know what they're talking about. And I don't know whether I'm mixing this in with the other one where Google just pulled the pin because like they didn't know what they were doing. But like, just I that's what I saw in my head. I'm thinking, oh my God, Shane's business is going to be crazy successful. And then there's going to be like an AI receptionist and then like an AI placemaker or place setter, and they're going to call each other up, and then like the world's just going to blow up. It's just going to be, wait, are you one of those? Wait, I am. Wait, are you also? And then they're going to start communicating, and it's not just going to be one company to another company. It's going to be every single freaking company, just AI systems talking to each other. Hey, watch this. I'm going to shut all the power down to the building, and I'm going to turn the heat up as high as it goes, and not let anybody out. That's what's going to happen. I'm just
Absolutely.
Kidding.
This will be when we all have our own AI assistants. I think, our own personal AI assistants.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's going to shut all the doors for the building, but not realizing that our AI versions are actually working for us, and we're just at home going, look at these AI people thinking that we're working. All right, Shane, it was great to chat.
Right.
It was great to chat. Let's not wait so long for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Before we go, where can people catch up with you now? Like, where are you sticking?
Awaken.guide. Same place.
So good.
Yeah.
Perfect. For anybody that wants to reach out to me, it's dex.thedecafnetwork.com. All the stuff's in there. And Shane, till we chat again, you have a good rest of the day.
You too, buddy.
See you, mate.
See ya.